Kasi Lady and Michael, good afternoon to everyone. And thank you once again for your time and also for coming to the final lecture about Nan Madol. Okay. But before we hear from one of our guest lecturers, we also have another presenter. Dr. Denise Owen will be presenting on behalf of our filming students. It's unfortunate that they're not here today. They're probably still in class, but hopefully as they come in, if you should have any questions regarding what's going to be presented, please feel welcome to ask the questions, or even our presenter. So let's welcome Dr. Denise Owen.
Okay, so really quickly, this summer, Zelina and I had this wonderful experience where we combined two classes. One was an English class, and one was History of Micronesia. And Zelina is the goddess of History of Micronesia. And one of the reasons we put this together is the reading class was reading to prepare you for college. And we thought it'd be great to put that with a college class. So the students were with both of us for the entire time together, and the classes talked to each other. So the topics we read about in the reading class, the English class, were related to History of Micronesia. On top of that, we had a filmmaker named Dan Lin, and he came, and for the first 2 weeks, he taught our students to make films. And one of the connections with that is because the history of Micronesia is about storytelling. And filmmaking is storytelling in the new form. For 2 weeks, our students learned to make films. And they went from not knowing how to work with a camera on Monday morning to at the end of the week, they had already shot a couple videos. It was a miracle. And then at the end of 2 weeks, they did a really, really nice job. We had a great summer. We became a family. We learned so much about the history of Micronesia, what was happening in Micronesia now. We went on wonderful field trips.
Well, one observation that I also had on the student was that on the first day I could notice that most of them, when they shared where they came from or even a little bit of their culture, there was really evidence showing that they really didn't appreciate history. When we completed the course, they were like, oh, I want to learn more. Yeah. They had more questions, and they really wanted to dive into many things about the history of not just Micronesia, but more specific to Pohnpei, and especially to Nan Madol.
Yeah, that was just really apparent. And then sort of like, especially when I'm reading about the history of Micronesia, a lot of the events make you feel emotional. Like a lot of hard things have happened here. And so just thinking about that together as a community was really powerful. So at the end of this class, Zelina and I wrote an article for the newspaper about what had happened. Well, it just so happens, and Gus is going to talk about it, the U.S. Embassy has this grant that it gave so that Nan Madol, since it's been named a World Heritage Site, they need to do a little bit of work on the site to bring it up where it needs to be. And they read this article we wrote and said, you know, it'd be great if your filmmakers could film these folks working on that project. And I know it costs a lot of money to do that, so let's give you a big grant. So they gave our students a grant, and with that grant, our students met and said, here's the equipment we need. So they received, they purchased a lot of camera equipment, GoPros, drones, computers to do editing, all sorts of cameras, tripods. They were able to purchase that, and they were able to contract with Dan Lin again. And so that filmmaker came again and helped them start this documentary. So the students from this summer are doing a documentary of this work that Gus is going to be talking about a little bit further. They have been amazing. These filmmakers, they are filmmakers. And so now I'll tell you about the next thing that happened, but we'll go over some of the things we did. So as you can see, obviously we visited Nan Madol several times. And this is a picture during, I think this was our second or third time? The second time. There was a king tide. So the filmmakers had to walk through this deep water with their camera equipment to get to the site. And they were amazing. It worked really well. This is, what's this? Sibelius? What's his name? Silvanus. This is Chief Silvanus, and he graciously allowed the students to interview them, but look how professional they are. And this guy in the blue is Dan, and this is his partner, Nina. They're sort of in the background. Most of the work is being done by the filmmakers. So they had already written questions for Mr. Silvanus, and so they interviewed him. So they did several interviews over the course of the project so far. This gentleman is Doug Comer, and Gus will be talking about him. His team, what they do is they go to these World Heritage Sites and make sure that they're sustainable. Because you can imagine, like Nan Madol is really, really old, right? And what happens to nature as it continues? Does it always stay the same? Do rocks stay rock? Like there's this tendency for things to break down or overgrow, and so his group is trying to see how they can keep Nan Madol sustainable so that it remains in the shape it needs to remain. But that's tricky, right? Because you're supposed to go around and touch stuff. What happens if you go around and touch stuff at sacred sites? Is that okay?
No, you're done.
And it's happened, right? So it's complicated. It's really complicated, and that's why this has been such a great experience for our students, because they've been able to see how complex this is, and the film that they're creating talks about that. So this is Doug, and we are near Nan Madol, up by the radio tower, and he's talking to them about the information they're getting from something called LIDAR. Do you guys know what LIDAR is? Gus knows what LIDAR is. It's kind of cool. You know when you go to the doctor and have an x-ray, they see through your flesh to see your bones? LIDAR sees through vegetation. So this machine is on a drone, and it can go and see what's underneath the mangrove, for example. Because maybe to your eyes, you just see a mangrove, but they can say, oh, actually, parts of the buildings from Nan Madol are underneath that. So they're interviewing him, Doug, and that's our filmmakers looking totally professional. That's Cynthia and Nicole and Saran. This is Kimber, and Kimber is filming the crew, and right there the scientists are taking, getting information that they're going to use when they are thinking about how they're going to keep Nan Madol sustainable. Doesn't she look professional? Yeah, she's great. And so these guys, we miss them so much because we spent like 2 weeks with them the entire time. So that was at Nan Madol that same day, I think. This, let's see, that's Kimber and Nicole. So this is Tom. So Tom is one of the, that's Tom, right? Tom and George are LIDAR operators, and they're kind of like Indiana Jones types. They're just cool guys. This is Margie, and she is a famous botanist, and she looks at plants. Do you think we want to include people who look at plants when we're looking at Nan Madol? We certainly do. So she joined, she lives in Yap, she joined. But again, our filmmakers are making sure that they document all of these things. Thank you. So part of filmmaking is you have to always look at what did we get? What did we want to, what story did we want to collect, and did we collect this story? So, and this is Cynthia, Nicole, and Saran are checking to see how their filmmaking is capturing what's going on at that moment. Okay, so they've been shooting for about 3 weeks. They've done interviews, they've gone into the field, they've done all of this work. The U.S. Embassy wanted a presentation on what they have done so far. So Doug's group was interviewed, and Edward documented that. So we've been documenting this entire process. So we are continuing, the filmmakers are continuing to document all these things that are happening. We're really excited. National Geographic is coming. They're going to come in a couple weeks to kind of look at what's going on. And then they're coming in May to film, and they're going to be working with our filmmaking students. But the main thing I want to share with you is how incredible your voices are as storytellers. And if you're telling the story using your voices, that's fabulous. If you're telling your story and you're writing it down, that's fabulous. If you're telling that story using film, so that's where we are. We just wanted to share that. And if you're interested or got excited by this, we're looking for filmmakers. So let us know, okay? Thank you.
Privileged to present the next presenter for today. Some of us probably know Mr. Augustine Kohler. Not that he's popular, but he became even more popular. He became even more popular when he represented Pohnpei and the FSM in the presentation of the process that took place to approve Nan Madol as one of the UNESCO World Heritage Site. Mr. Augustine Kohler is here with us today to present on the efforts that have been done to get Nan Madol to be approved for the UNESCO World Heritage Site. He's also going to touch on the challenges that the FSM, but most especially Pohnpei, faces today in the preservation and conservation of the Nan Madol site. Please help me welcome Mr. Augustine.
Thank you, Delina. Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, Osama. As Delina said, my name is Augustine Kohler. I work with the FSM Office of National Archives. I'm the National Historic Preservation Officer. It is with great pleasure that I am here today to continue the series of discussions on Nan Madol that began on Monday with Dr. Osamu and continued Wednesday with my boss, Dr. Rufino. My brief presentation will focus primarily on what, for example, it means when a site is inscribed as a World Heritage Site and the process involved in the nomination of site, especially Nan Madol. As you are probably aware, Nan Madol was inscribed on the World Heritage List and at the same time on the World Heritage List in Danger. Inscription on the list in danger was supported by us, by the state party, meaning the FSM, as a means of drawing support for an overall assessment of the stability of the stone remains, for drafting a long-term conservation strategy, and for attracting international support for implementation. This nomination was actually a serial nomination between Nan Madol and the Lela ruins in Koshrai. However, due to many land issues concerning Lela, the difficult decision to exclude Lela at that time was made. On its own, Nan Madol had a greater chance of being inscribed than it would have been had Lela been included in the nomination. So I had to make that difficult decision, but the Pohnpeians were especially pushing for Nan Madol, so we decided that it was for the FSM to have the first World Heritage Site, we should go ahead with Nan Madol without Lela. But Lela is still in consideration. The journey to Istanbul, as Delina mentioned, to Turkey in Istanbul, to witness the inscription of the first World Heritage Site in the FSM on July 15, 2016, was both a humbling and memorable experience for me. Humbling as I was the lone representative of the FSM at the 40th session of the World Heritage Committee, and memorable because in the evening of the day of inscription, a military coup was in full force. So I did not know if I was going to come back home alive or not. This journey, to be sure, began almost 20 years ago. The work to inscribe Nan Madol began way before I came on board in 2010 to work at the national government. Somehow, there was no consensus or agreement between the stakeholders, Point Bay State, and again, the issue was land ownership. So when I became acting, my boss was picked for 4 years to be a Secretary of Education. So I was acting in his stead for 4 years. So I thought that while I was acting, I want to leave something so that when people came, they'll say, oh, Augustine actually did work. He didn't just sit as acting and collected the salary for the acting sheet. So I focused on trying to work on Nan Madol so that it could be inscribed. I took a different tack. I reviewed all the work that they had done before me. And I realized one of the things that it was the monarch himself, all the national government leaders and officials and state, they all agreed that Nan Madol was worthy of being inscribed on the World Heritage Site. But somehow there was always this issue of land ownership, and it seems like the monarchy was reluctant because of that. So for 3 months, almost every weekend, I would drive up to Nan Madol and drink sakao with the monarchy. And I would come home, and after 3 months, I guess he gave his blessing. And so after that, the work just went smoothly. All I did was apply to UNESCO for funding, and I got all the professionals, including Takuya, Osamu. I didn't actually do the work, I just sat there and I was the boss, kind of directing everything, but they did all the work. Anyway, so finally it got inscribed in 2016. Put the map. Oh, okay, so as a World Heritage Site, this is Nan Madol, as you can see. One of the two requirements that you need is a core zone and a buffer zone. The core zone is in red, and the buffer zone. So, as a World Heritage Site, nothing, absolutely nothing should happen within the buffer zone. So we need to monitor buildings, anything, any kind of construction. But the buffer zone is also there to help us monitor any kind of projects. At the moment, Takuya, where's the Joy Island? This one? Yeah, at the moment, as I'm not sure you're aware, but there's a resort being built here. So we're trying to work with Point Bay State and the owner to ensure that the building does not affect what you call the OUVO, outstanding universal value of the site. But this is, as a World Heritage Site, this in this photo is the core zone and the buffer zone. Okay, well, do you guys know what the UNESCO stands for? Anybody want to take a guess? Since we'll be talking about UNESCO. Okay, so UNESCO is the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. FSM is a party to UNESCO, and that's why we're able to list our important sites on the prestigious World Heritage Site. So what does it mean to be a World Heritage Site? Here's another example. This is the Taj Mahal in India. It's a World Heritage Site. And now Nan Madol is a World Heritage Site. So a World Heritage Site is a landmark or area which is selected by UNESCO as having cultural, historical, scientific, or other significance, and is legally protected by international treaties. The sites are judged important for the collective interest of humanity. To be selected, a World Heritage Site must be an already classified landmark, unique in some respect as a geographically and historically identifiable place having special cultural or physical significance, such as ancient ruins or historical structure, building, city, complex, desert, forest, island, lake, mountain, or wilderness area. It may signify a remarkable accomplishment of humanity and serve as evidence of our intellectual history of the planet. The sites are intended for practical conservation for posterity, which otherwise would be subject to risk from human or animal trespassing, unmonitored, uncontrolled, unrestricted access, or threat from local administrative negligence. Sites are demarcated by UNESCO as protected zone. Again, in the former slide, you have the buffer zone and core zone. Okay. So this is the nominating process. So what we have to do before Nan Madol could be a World Heritage Site. First, a country must first list its significant cultural and natural sites. The result is called a tentative list. So first, FSM must have a tentative list. A country may not nominate the sites that have not been first included on a tentative list. So it's very important that a country that is party to UNESCO first have a tentative list of all the important sites in their country and have that listed. Okay, next, you can place sites selected from that list into a nomination file. So that's exactly what we did. We put Nan Madol on a tentative list, including Lela, including the Stone Money in Yak, and including the Chuk Lagoon. But we're going to be working, I'll be talking about the Chuk Lagoon, the other nomination in Yak. Okay, the nomination file is then evaluated by the National Council on Monuments and Sites, and also by the World Conservation Union. These bodies then make their recommendation to the World Heritage Committee. The committee meets once per year to determine whether or not to inscribe each nominated property on the World Heritage list, and sometimes defers or refers the decision to request more information from the country which nominated the site. There are then selection criteria. A site must at least meet one of them to be included on the list. Okay. So for Nan Madol, we met 4 out of the criteria. That's the criteria. So these are the criteria that are required for a site if it's a cultural site. So out of the 6, Nan Madol was able to just be justified by criterion 1, which is that it represents a masterpiece of human creative genius and cultural significance. Criteria 3, to bear a unique or at least exceptional testimony to a cultural tradition or to a civilization which is living or which has disappeared. Criterion 4, which is an outstanding example of a type of building, architecture, or technological ensemble or landscape which illustrates a significant stage in human history. And criterion 6 is directly or tangibly associated with events or living traditions, with ideas or with beliefs, with artistic or literary works of outstanding universal significance. So out of the 6 criteria that are required for a site to be eligible to be nominated on such a prestigious list, FSM was able to justify 4. You just need 1 criteria to be able, but we were able to justify 4. Endangered sites. So what does it mean to be, as I mentioned, Nan Madol was at the same time on the World Heritage list and also on the endangered site. According to that, a site may be added to the list of heritage in danger if there are conditions that threaten the characteristic for which the landmark or area was inscribed on the World Heritage list. Such problems may involve armed conflict and war, natural disasters, pollution, poaching, or uncontrolled urbanization and human development. This danger list is intended to increase international awareness of the threats and to encourage counteractive measures. Threats to a site can either proven imminent threats or potential dangers that could have adverse effects on the site. And I just bring up this example. If you've been to Nan Madol, this is the outside barrier wall, and as you can see, it's crumbling. So that's one of the things that we want to focus on. And also, one of the main problems is the siltation of the channels. Right now, we got some funding from UNESCO and we did the initial clearing of the channels. So now boats, you can actually go on boat and visit most of the islands right now. But I just want to bring out that this is an example of a site that's on the endangered list, because you can see the walls are also crumbling. Okay, conclusion. I told you my presentation was going to be fair short. Okay, conclusion. The important thing for us right now as a party is to remove. We don't want a site to be on the endangered list for a long time. We want to remove. So we're working to develop what they call a TSOC. So decide, what's that word? Jason, help. What's that, Jason? Decide what?
Something like scenic conservation or
Desired state of conservation. So we, in that regard, we got funding from Japan. We're going to establish a visitor center at Nan Madol, and this will help us to monitor the number of people visiting. Not only that, it will cut down. If you go to Nan Madol now, you have to pay 3 different people or 3 different families to enter. But with the center, hopefully, we cut down that to a one-payment system, and we can monitor the number of people going there. And also, most important, the people going there are oriented, so they know a little of the story of Nan Madol before they visit the site. Also, we, as Denise mentioned, we got a grant, a huge grant. This is the first time that Nan Madol has got like 375,000 from the Ambassador's Fund. So they've been using LiDAR, so we can determine where the siltation, because the channels are being silted up. So one of the things is to determine what is the cause of the siltation of the channels, how do we remove that so water flow can start penetrating and expanding the routes. And also, hopefully, with LiDAR, we will discover more sites, because it can also penetrate underground. And that is my presentation for today. Please feel free to ask questions if you have any. I think I just want to impress on you guys that it took about 20 years. The work actually began way before I even joined. So when I came in, I was fortunate that the framework was already set by my boss. So I stand on the shoulders of giants, So I didn't do it on my own. It was a group of people who came together, such as Tapuya. I had professionals from Australia, from France, from Japan, from the US. All I did was pay them good money, and they did the good work for me. So, do you guys have any questions? Feel free.
Question.
Yes.
Mr. Kohler. So in the effort to get Nan Madol to be approved, or before this question, how did Philippines react when they find out that Nan Madol was being promoted to become one of UNESCO's World Heritage Sites? Were the reactions mostly positive, mostly negative, or?
It was both. It was both. Positive for those who realize the importance of having a site, because this is the first and only FSM World Heritage Site. Negative in the sense that some of them, even before I came back from Turkey, I was already getting emails that the rumor was already spread that I sold Nan Madol to UNESCO for $1 million, and I'm a rich man. But yeah, positive in the sense that a lot of people who appreciate the work, conservation and preservation work that we do, realize that FSM alone cannot take care of Nan Madol. We need international assistance. So by putting Nan Madol on that site, the international community is expected to assist us, and so far we've been receiving that assistance. So I'm thankful again to the government of Japan, and the US, and France. Even France is coming in now. I'm sure China will be jumping in soon.
Any other questions from the audience?
Yes, Penny.
Okay, so here's my worry. Change is change, and it's complicated, and people have different perspectives. One of the times we were at Nan Madol, and we actually got this on film, a boat came by with visitors from somewhere else, and they were drinking beer, and had been drinking beer all morning, and just sort of being loud and really not dressed appropriately. And then some folks came by in a jet ski across, because I kept saying, I'm really hoping that as this wonderful place becomes more recognized, what do we do when people come over and aren't respectful, and something bad might happen someday? And like, someday, this is happening right now. So, what is your sense of how to protect that wonderful place and get it the respect it needs if more visitors come?
It's a very good question. In fact, I know more visitors will be coming. And I'm hoping that with the visitor center, we're able to not only monitor, but also to guide them, to guide them on how to properly behave. Because this is a sacred site for us.
It is.
In fact, a lot of Pohnpeians, even today, haven't gone there. They're still, we're superstitious people. So that's one way of us preserving, by perpetuating that superstition. But for outsiders who come in, I think it's very important that there be a guideline, the way you dress, how you talk, no climbing on the walls. So hopefully these are things that my office can work with Pohnpei HPO. But Pohnpei HPO should be monitoring this. This is their baby.
Thank you.
But yes, we have a lot. There's a lot ahead of us. This is just the beginning.
Right.
Things are just coming through. And I guarantee people will come. They will come. Maybe not in my lifetime. But we need to put monitoring measures in place before they come. I've been to Angkor Wat. I don't want Nan Madol to be like Angkor Wat.
And we went to Cambodia and we didn't even go to Angkor Wat because we just read it's insane. Like there's just people with cameras and it's not even the place it was. It's not sacred anymore. So that was another one of my concerns. So
yes, I'm fortunate that I was able to travel and see other places that have already been on the list. And that's a learning experience for us. And I've shared my concerns with my colleagues, and hopefully we will have such guidelines in place by the time the visitor center is completed.
good.
I think it's Women's Day, so everybody's quiet.
It's Women's Day.
Yes, boss.
Thank you. I have a comment and question. I want to thank you for doing what you have done, not only for Pohnpei State, but for the FSM. There are issues involved, like what she mentioned. But I noted that we take care of Nan Madol for now. You see all of the rocks in the pictures, you don't see any drawings on it, you don't see any. So that's part of our effort. We'd like to keep that up for now. And then another item. Actually, we nominated 3 criteria. We recommended 3 criteria for Nan Madol, but Vicomos, the group that evaluated that, decided to give us another one. That's the first criteria, and that is saying a lot for something that we overlooked regarding comment on our creativeness and our genius. That's for all of us, from our ancestors all the way up to here. And I think that particular criteria was especially true in the case of Nandoas, the picture that you look at, that very well made structure. That is, we don't know who the genius was. Somebody was instrumental in having to think about where it should be, having to think about how it will stand up for hundreds of years up until now. So again, I want to thank you. I think you put us on the world stage. One issue that I have is I've noted in internet that there is a lot more sensational writings about Nan Madol itself ever since we put it on the World Heritage. So people continue to want to know what is the underwater city, and they still want to question whether the stones came out of Mars or something, or some of the planets. So it triggers a lot more questions, a lot more issues. Yeah, but again, thank you very much.
I just want to add that, so Lela is part of, it's a serial nomination, it's called a serial nomination. So when we have time, you know, when we have a little more time, we're going to tackle Lela again and try to nominate it. And we also have what we call a transboundary nomination, US deferred. So a transboundary meaning between two countries, so Palau and the FSM, and that's the Stone Money Niap. So that was deferred, and we're working on that now. So hopefully by this, by 2020, we're gonna resubmit the nomination again. So our goal, well, my goal is to at least have one World Heritage Site in each of the FSM states, and then I can retire. Hopefully soon. But I want to thank again Dr. Rufino. They started the work way before I even came on board. I want to thank Osamu, who did the lecture on Monday. Takui, and especially Jason also. Jason, the guy in the red hat. That's my right hand man. He's the technical expert. Without him, I'd be lost with drones and cameras. So all of them contributed a lot to the nomination. If you want to see the nomination, you're always welcome. It's about 400 pages. It's about this thick. So it's not easy work. So luckily I have all the professionals. Any more questions so we can have some cake? In Chuk, we're trying to work on the, for you Chukis here, we're trying to work on the Chuk Lagoon. But by itself, we tried the shipwrecks. By itself, it did not meet all the criteria or some of the criteria. So UNESCO is recommending to have a mixed nomination, meaning cultural, the shipwrecks, plus natural, the lagoon itself. So we're trying to find something unique in the lagoon of Chuk, so we can tie it into the cultural aspect of it and then submit it as a mixed nomination. Everybody's
Any more
tongue-tied.
questions from the audience? No questions on how this is tied to what you're learning in the classroom? No one wants to ask that? What's the connection between what's happening at Nan Madol for our efforts to promote our natural sites and to what we're learning in our classroom? Marine science, Micronesian studies, even sociology, anthropology. What's the connection? Is anyone curious about this? Micronesian studies students, where are you? Sean?
I hope some of them will decide to major in archaeology, like my boss. He's got a PhD in archaeology. My background is in anthropology. You guys, one day you can be the National Historic Preservation Officer. Trust me, I travel all over the world. So my job is one of the most famous jobs in the FSM. I've been all over the world. So I need somebody to replace me because I'm retired soon.
Can I ask one final question?
Yes, yes.
So I guess my question, and this is for the students, to this team is, in the current effort and challenges that the team faces now, the team that's working on this process to re-nominate or to get the approval of Nan Madol. In these challenges and efforts, how do you see COM? COM as a contributing member, or COM's effort in making this process probably a little bit more successful in its current efforts and challenges, whether it be marine science, Micronesian studies, or business, or whatever the area is that's offered here at C1 FSM. What can students
I'll
give?
defer to my boss.
Yeah, first of all, we have natural sites that can be nominated for the World Heritage. Is Nan Madol a natural or a cultural site? It is a cultural site. But we developed a marine area right by Nandawas. You can have both natural and cultural. So for that matter, I think you can tie Nan Madol to your cultural things. You've already starting to contribute by being filmmakers of that cultural site for the nomination, right?
I think for me, the biggest contribution right now from your film crew will be the promotion in 2020 when we have the Pacific Festival of Arts in Hawaii. Because then Nan Madol will surely be on the international arena. So I'm looking forward to the film because that's going to be one promotion of Nan Madol. And the Pacific Festival of Art brings in people from all over the world. It's going to be in Hawaii in 2020.
Yeah, and we're talking about that with Dan on Tuesday.
Okay,
That's
great.
that, yeah.
And you are fortunate to have. National Geographic is one of the best, if not the best, in the world for documentaries of both natural and cultural. So by having that, you learn from them, and that's a good promotion.
Yes.
So come really serious, talk to one of us, because we're looking for filmmakers,
Storytellers.
storytellers with cameras. Yep.
Yeah, national, as my boss mentioned, they're coming out. The initial survey will be done this month, sometime this month, but filming will actually be in May. So I've sent them some recommendations because we have a research policy at the national government for anybody who comes in who wants to do research, especially on sites like Nan Madol. And one of the recommendations that me and Doc did was to make sure that the filmmakers here from COM are part of that process. So in a way, I want them to be interns. So they're helping this, I mean, these are professionals, you know, they're all over the world. So I want them to be interns with this group so that when this group leaves, you know, the capacity is left here. And so, I mean, you're contributing, these are the next generation. So we want to impress upon them how important it is to safeguard, because Nan Madol is unique, but I'm sure there are other places and other islands that are unique too.
And
But,
can I just interject too, so Zelina and I talk about this all the time. So the textbook that you use for History of Micronesia, who wrote that textbook? Was it one of you? Was it one of, no. If you let somebody else tell your stories, it's not your story. It is not your story unless you tell it.
I agree.
So, write, tell the story, be a filmmaking intern with National Geographic. Delina and I want you all knocking on our doors this afternoon. Okay, sorry. I'm very passionate about this.
Yes, understandable. I think this is just the beginning. You know, once National Geographic is here, and we got the film from Japan, from Korea, from France that have done Nan Madol, but that was before. But now, so I'm happy that CRM is part of the exposure aspect of Nan Madol to the rest of the world. And like I said, I mean, people will come, and we have to be prepared. Dr. Rubino, in fact, has already prepared a training brochure for tour guides. And so it's going to be aimed at CRM. So hopefully you guys will take up that course and, you know, in Japanese or English, so that when people go there, you know, you can actually tell them the story instead of somebody else. But the brochures have been prepared by my boss. For someone, no questions?
Or comment?
Or comment?
They're looking at the cake and they're like,
Takuya, no comment?
Us?
Yes.
Takia, can you just kind of briefly tell the audience how you put together that 400-page dossier? Just briefly, I mean, it's not an easy job, but some of you may end up doing something like that.
It was like a team project. I mean, like different experts working on different sections, and I'm the one sort of like compiling all of them.
So it was a team of professionals that we put together, and I asked them to deal on different aspects of the nomination. So what's his name again? Long-haired Tom?
Oh, Tom.
Adam.
Okay.
It was Adam, Takuya, Osamu, and a lot of people. But they each did a different part of the nomination, and then Takuya was mainly charged with putting all those together to tell a story. And all I did was I made sure I kept calling the deadline. 4 years. I'll let you guys now know. It took us 4 years to do that. So it was no easy task. 4 years of my life we spent working on that, and finally, 2016, it went through. It's important, if you go back to your islands, as Doctor was mentioning, if you find sites that you think, deserve to be recognized, please let our office know. Because we don't know everything, So we're basically based in Phnom Penh. So if you go to Chuk, you go to Yap, Koshrai, wherever you're from, and there are sites that you think are important, let us know. And we can help you design some kind of a protection measure or promotion for sure. That's our job. Well, it's my job.
Finally, I will shout out that. I was the graduate of CCM, the forerunner of COM. When I was there, we had a very small library. Education was not that well developed. Compared to now, the kind of work that he did, research work on Nan Madol, can be done right here, because we have enough collections to start. At the time of COM, I can't even start to think about doing research work. But now we're well accommodated. I think in the FSM, college has probably the best collection in the library. So you are doing well. You can do research like what he did, write a book, do your research here, and then we'll find people to talk to, interview them. So I want to congratulate us.
Since CEO on the conference now.
Any final questions or comments from the audience?
Ira wants to eat chocolate.
We're also, we hire a lot of interns, or is it work study, Doctor?
Yeah,
Every year, eh? So if you're interested in working in our office, to come by. And I can guarantee there's a lot of information there that you will find very interesting. If you like reading history like I do. Not only that, I mean, films also. So you're welcome to come and apply. Make coffee for me. Well, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. I encourage you to study art and be like my boss. Go and get your PhD. I have a niece, she's in Australia now. She's getting her PhD, Majulin Kim from Chuk.
Okay.
So I'm very, very proud of her. So especially you ladies, study art. I mean, the men too, but especially you. Thank you.
Thank you.